Morning.
Good morning. We wanted to talk this morning about the beautiful mums that turn up each week on our calls and the beautiful kids. And they turn up each week to release trauma, to work on triggers that go back to trauma in their lives, and to really transform that so that they have a different response to their kids and to all the people in their lives, really. And mostly, of course, they have different stuff going on inside themselves. More peace, more calm, more joy. It's really, really an awesome thing to watch everyone grow and expand. And one of the things I notice on the calls, because children are most welcome on the calls, we have quite a lot of homeschool children on our calls and small children. So I see the kids all the time, I talk to them, and we've made a list today in our post about all the things that our parents really value and honour in their children. And I see this. So if you're a parent out there who's wondering about doing this inner work with us, just know that you'll be on a call with other parents who are really honouring these things. And I mean, this is not an extensive list. The list would be very long if I was to put all the things that the parents honour, but these are the things that really came to mind. So we're honouring children's emotions on the call, and that means that sometimes phones get taken off mums and stuff, and we do lots of pausing. We do lots of waiting for kids to, like they might be like going through their emotions, and we just pause. Parents have to go out of the room, and they have to go and, like, they take kids to the toilet. There's all sorts of things go on in our calls that it doesn't take too long, but we're honouring the children's emotions. I often see imagination honoured. So that is all sorts of creativity is happening behind the scenes. I think we were like all sorts of craft, and I often get shown forts that kids are building and all sorts of things. So that's really amazing. And of course that ties in with their creativity. That is definitely being honoured, and they often come and tell me stories about things, and we honour that. I love it. I absolutely love it. We honour them being active. I often have children in the background doing handstands up against the walls, and sometimes they get me to watch. This all happens in the midst of mums letting go of things. In fact, it actually adds to the whole call.
And not always being active, hey? Sometimes it's resting or
sleeping babies. We have sleeping babies.
Yeah.
We had one baby go and put herself to sleep on the bed, and Mum sent me a picture of it. It was so gorgeous. We have them expressing their creativity through different clothing, and of course honouring the way that they like to be touched. That's something that I often see. Like this is about, some children like a lot of touch, some children actually don't like touch. And that can be triggering sometimes for mums who really want to give their child a hug. But in our group, in the Awakened Parent, people really understand that this of probably one of the biggest ones really has to be honoured in early life, if a child consents to touch or not. So from after that extensive list, I thought, well, and all the ways that I see the children being honoured. Now, I know the mums that watch this, that are on the calls, are going to be going, oh yes, Ilka, but I don't do that all the time, and I have my days, and we have our triggered moments and all of that. But all in all, the people, and if you're in this group, I'm sure this is your main intention to do this. And even though, you might feel like you're failing at that a lot of the time, I know I certainly did. And then I asked Jo to sort of go through, I kind of joked to her. So how do you think these things were honoured in your childhood? And look, we want to put a caveat to this first. We are fully about the programming being passed down through the generations. There is absolutely no blame put onto any parent in any way, shape or form, whether they're a parent from 100 years ago or a parent that you had or a grandparent. They did the best they could with the information that they had at the time, with the programming that they had, because they experienced a lot of trauma themselves growing up, and we really understand this. So they were only passing down, Jo's parents were only passing down to her, the same as mine, what they knew. And we come from the belief system that they did the best they could. In fact, most of their intention was to protect because of the trauma they'd had in their life.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So this is not it, but from Jo's perspective as a child growing up in the era, so the other thing we're about, even though we're not about blame, the other thing we're about is acknowledging where the trauma is and then clearing it. Not dwelling on it, but then releasing it, clearing it, so that it's not running your subconscious anymore. And this is actually quite a simple process when you come on the calls, and we use the tapping, we use lots of different processes to help you actually just clear it up. And we can clear up, 20 years of trauma in fairly short spaces of time. And it's really, really amazing. So
and that whole, what you just said about our parents doing the best they could with the knowledge they had at the time, that is a huge one. I couldn't really embody that statement until my 40s. I was holding on to a lot of hate.
Yeah.
But so it took some time for me to really get that one and hold true to that.
Yes, and I know that there are parents on the calls that, this is a big statement. My parents did the best that they can, but of course we've got to understand that unless we can embrace that statement about our own parents, how can we ever embrace it about ourselves? And we really are doing the best we can in every moment. So, but there are some fabulous tools out there that we can learn to change traumas and triggers. So we're going to ask Jo though for different memories and see if you resonate with what and this is also just for you to just to see what's going on. What have you got still stored back there? Because you actually thought, really, even though there was a lot of around your parents, you really, who are you to key That was kind of the mantra you were running as well, wasn't it? You had a normal life.
Yeah, two key things. That that's one of them, and then another really big one. So who am I to complain? Like, we always had a roof over our head, we always had plenty of food. I went to school, I got to play sport, I had friends, all of those things. So who am I? Like, there was no big trauma, but loads of little trauma every day, over and over again, and then that lead me to live my life in a way that continually I'm questioning who I am, like worthlessness. I'm coming from such a big place of lack and trying to do things to let people know that I am worthy of even being alive.
Yeah. So that's why I wanted to go through this list, because sometimes when you have just lots of little T traumas or whatever you want to call them, and we honour any trauma, because all traumas, while they're still in the subconscious, are running your life. So if they're not acknowledged and you don't bring them up to release, and you can do that very quickly, but it
can be a look, it can be a tone of voice, it can be a touch on the shoulder without your consent, it can be what seems like little is not little.
Yeah, that's it.
Not if you're replaying the story over and over in here and behaving from that story.
Yeah, and it built all your belief systems about yourself. It built your perceptions. It is a story from the past. It is a perception from the past. It is not real right now. And yet, if you're being dragged into your stories, I know they feel real in the body because you can still feel it in there. And that's why when we come along to the calls and do the work, you can change that.
Hang on, before we go to the first one, I've got to tell you, so there was lots of cringing as I'm writing the stories last night, because the common theme that showed up for me, lots of you aren't going to want to hear this one, is that the things that I didn't like about my childhood, I actually did to my children. So I was writing about bullying and recognised that, oh gosh, the bullied becomes the bully. The person who didn't receive acknowledgement becomes the person who doesn't give acknowledgement. The person who suppresses, who has had emotions not expressed around them, and I learned to suppress my emotions, and then what do I do to my husband and my children? As soon as they show me any sort of emotion, I'm like, shut that down, go away, sort that stuff, and come back to me when, like, you don't have emotions that I need to deal with, because I can't deal with them.
Yeah. So I'm sure that many of you out there have experienced this. If you're human, if you are born, if you have breath in your body, usually you've had some sort of experience. And if you've got children, you're just really lucky.
Yeah.
Because your children are giving you an opportunity to see that. I mean, they're not backward in coming forward too, which is awesome, because I'll often say, my kids will say, oh, that was a good guilt trip, Mum, good try. They recognise these things now. Of course, I've definitely pointed them out to them, and they've learnt lots of these processes too to release stuff. But which is beautiful. Moving forward, the world will release traumas very fast. Do I keep saying that this morning? So if we just go through this, I want you to, as I'm asking Jo these questions, see what you can think about from your own childhood. What happened to you around the topic of emotion? And write it in the comments. If we'd love to hear, what are some of your stories around emotions? So what happened in your childhood home around emotions, Jo?
What's that word mean? I saw my mum cry once. Emotions.
That was when her mother died, wasn't it?
Yeah. Sometime after her mum died.
Yeah.
I got to recognise, an example is I watched a movie one time that was it was too old for me, and it was really dark, and I went away and I cried, and I was really upset, and Mum came to see me, and basically those emotions, the tears, were dismissed, like it's just a movie, like, what are you doing? And so I learned to stuff them down. I mean, this is also a woman, and love your mum, but babies, I recall hearing the term, and I checked in on this with my sister, I hate babies.
Yeah.
So that's a pretty big statement. When you come in as a baby.
Yeah. And then hearing that later on, and
rerunning the story in my mind. And I also had a fun conversation coming up with the stories with one of my sisters, and she told me about a time that she's having an argument with my mum, and my dad's vacuuming, and she's basically stepped over the vacuum, like pushed Dad out of the way to get to Mum to go at her physically, and Dad just kept vacuuming. Nothing's going on in my life. I've just got to keep vacuuming here. This is the most important thing.
So and it's all the meanings. We're telling these stories not because Jo's tapped on this stuff, let go of it. It's not, it's not controlling her life anymore, but we're telling, if you're out there and you feel like if you were telling stories around emotions from childhood and they were still bringing up a lot of like, you know, you can really feel that in your body and they're still running your life, then you know, think about coming along to our calls and changing that, because as Joe says, the bully becomes the bullier. And the suppressor becomes the suppressed.
Yes. I have to tell you how that showed up in my parenting, because this is who I was with my husband. We would have this cycle every 6 weeks, 2 months. Like, he'd basically leave me alone, not require conversation from me, which was perfect. Like, I was happy to run our family like a business. We'd both been business owners, so, and we were very efficient. But, you know, don't expect any like deep, heartfelt conversation from me. And then every 6 weeks, 2 months, he'd get really frustrated, really upset with me, and try and like lean in and come on, talk to me, you know. And I would just distance myself even further. And I was so good at it. I would go to the next level of coldness and disengagement, and then he would get more upset and he'd feel more alone because I've abandoned him even more when he's come to me for the very thing that he needs. And this happened over and over and over. So yes, that's where I become the bully, the one who can't, you know, it never happened for me. Nobody ever validated my emotions, so I'm not going to give it to you. And I did the same thing with my children.
Yeah. So I want to acknowledge you for being so brave to actually talk about this stuff. And, you know, we're really outing ourselves a lot on these videos, and we're deciding whether this one will go public. But, you know, we do this because we know that you can change it. So moving along.
And I used to drop my kids off, 3 children. I would drop them off at my parents' place sometimes when I had to, like we were both working or whatever. But I would drive around the corner and I would cry in the car.
Yeah.
This happened for years.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. So, imagination. How was imagination honoured for you as a child?
Well, along with...
Or not honoured?
Along with I hate babies, I also recall hearing a lot, I hate liars. And so I believe my imagination got shut down, along with creativity, very early, because I became this logic. Logic was my friend. Logic, analysis, left brain, beautiful. When I went to school, that's probably the first time I really felt like seen and honoured, because I was clever, I was academic. And it's nothing to do with the creativity, the emotional sides. It's all about like learning maths and spelling and yay, all that. Give me all of that. That's cool. I'm good at that.
Yeah.
And a funny story, when I was older and I went to this business owners retreat, and they did the whole left brain, right brain test. Yay, give me a test. At this point I'm like, yeah, I'll ace this. So on the left side is down, that's where you start with 0, and that's the analytical side. And on the right side, we're talking where the points would be around 24, 25, and that's the creativity side. And most entrepreneurs sit just to the right, the more creative side of the center, right? So we're taking the test, and the facilitator, he was quite funny, and he's already onto me because I've chosen pencil to do the test and I've got my rubber. So if I make a mistake, I can, you know, rub it out and write a different answer in. Anyway, we get halfway through and I'm like, I've got no points. And I'm really annoyed. You know, what's going on here? Are these questions right? Is that so? And he's laughing at me. We get to the end and I'm a 2. I'm down there writing the logical, analytical, and I want to be an entrepreneur. I want to be a creative entrepreneur, and I got nothing showing up down that end of the scale. And what was really fun that day was an accountant spoke to me afterwards, and he said, Jo, it's okay. You know, you can change, because he had told me about when he'd been down on that side. Interesting to note that I headed down the accounting path as well. And yeah, you can change. So I haven't taken the test again, but now I reckon I could even do it in pen, and I'd probably be somewhere up near the creative end.
I reckon you should do a note taking. It's all messy, just like mine, you know.
I can even misspell things now, which for me is like progress. It's progress.
Yes, definitely. That's such a cool story. All right, so I hope that you might be resonating with some of this if you're out there and you've started creating logic and analytical, super skills. We call them super skills. Your coping skills can become your super skills as an adult when you let go of the trauma. You don't need to let them go. Yes, you can develop the other skills as well. You're probably much more likely to do that if you let go of trauma. Because I believe all children are really creative and really imaginative, and we have both the ability to use our right and left brain. But when parents are saying that you're a liar, I said to Joe, imagine if your mum had said to me about my imaginary friend, like if you mock it and it's ridiculed. Then I either just go underground and really think that it's not safe to have an imaginary friend and I can't tell anyone about it, or so these are all the things that happen, and then we wonder why we have disconnection with our children. But they have both sides of the brain. I truly believe that. So, and they work really, really well until they're shut down. So what about being active or being quiet? How was that honoured or valued? And think about it for yourself, guys, if you're following along.
Yeah. It's so interesting because Dad was very active, very fit, and Mum was the opposite. And even like as an adult, I would find myself swinging from one way to another, feeling good about when I was exercising, and then something would happen and I could spend 2 days doing nothing and then really punish myself. And I saw Mum sleep on the lounge lots, and it's so interesting that that when I'm feeling awesome, I'll sleep in my bed at night, but when I'm feeling lonely or just a bit down and out, I find myself going to the lounge to go to sleep. And when you become aware of these things and the links to the past, like awareness is the first step, recognizing the links to the past, and then you can do something about it.
Yeah. And the couch doesn't have to be the enemy.
Yeah.
You can still sleep on the couch if you want, but you understand that you can shift all the loneliness and the feelings that you've got around it. And change it.
And with my kids, they all did sport. They all had to, they were going to be like Dad, like me, like I thought was the right way to be, the exercising. So I encouraged sport. I'm there for all the sporting events, and no surprises, but I didn't encourage let's do art classes the afternoon after school. And even I used to, as an adult, I used to walk, I'm looking out at the beach, reminding me of a story with my girlfriend, and we would, she loved getting her feet in the sand and the water, so we'd take shoes off and we'd walk down on the water's edge. And for months, I'm going, we shouldn't be doing this. We should be up on the path with all those runners, with our sand shoes on, like doing something, getting fit. Not down with our feet in the sand, getting grounded and in the ocean and talking about life and having amazing conversations. No, we should be up there running.
Yeah. What were you doing? What do you think you're doing with your life, Joe?
Yeah. Running, breathing heavy, making it hard. It's got to be hard.
Yeah. So as you're following along here, think about what's coming up for you and what were you learning from childhood? Were you learning that life had to be hard? Were you learning that it had to be easy? And put your comments below as you go, so we can see what happened for you. And this might bring up all sorts of things. So what about being loud or being quiet?
Oh, I became a...
Even the way you just did that. Like, you wouldn't have done that as a child, would you? Like, just burst out into like,
No, and I wouldn't be doing this.
No.
Silence was my superpower.
Yeah.
Even...
Great face.
Oh, yeah. Silence, and it gave me control, like, and it gave me better than, like, the people who are, like, if I had have met you.
Me. Yeah, she'd met me. I'm crazy one.
Oh, yeah. You're loud, crazy, and I'm doing silence, but I'm doing loads of judgment underneath that silence. Like, I'm better than you because I can keep my stuff together. I can, also people who are use silence as a weapon against people who wanted to show emotion to me. Oh, goddamn, I did that one well.
So this, just so people understand, this comes out of like, and if you're Australian and you're watching this video, this is a common program with Australians. We love mocking, we love sarcasm, we love taking the piss. You can't be full of yourself. You can't be, there was one.
Up yourself.
Up yourself. That came up. Oh, that's so used in high school so often, I remember. Yeah. It's not even an option to question life or what you might want or need. Yeah, that's it. That's it. Why would you do that, Kristen? Yeah. Good morning, gorgeous. So we have all these things that Australian culture, and bless their cotton socks, Joe's parents, like they've grown up in that culture really, really strongly. Again, we're not blaming them, but that's how they survived in the culture, was to use antagonism, to use mocking. This is how they avoided their feelings. So they're just passing down to her what kept them safe, really. Yeah. And there are positives to learning how to be an antagonist and to be kind of thick-skinned around somebody taking the piss and all that. But as a small child, the perception of that for a small child can be completely different. If my dad had said something to me, like made a joke, he used to joke and be like that too, but it was often about other people. And I knew what an effect that had on me. Like, I did not want to be the brunt of his jokes because they could be so cutting. And comedy can be like that, but it's and it's great when it's about other people and it can wake us up to our own programs. But when you're a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old or a 4-year-old and you don't get that mum's, you don't get that she's being sarcastic or whatever, you can really take that to heart.
When I was in high school, and my girlfriends had this idea, we did this more than once, to do prank calls.
Oh, yeah.
And I joined in and I did them, but I felt so bad inside because in my mind, I'm that child again, I'm that person on the other side of the phone, and I'm feeling so bad for that other person. Yet I joined in to, fit in, but it was horrible.
Yeah, and really that person on the other end of the phone might have been fine because they didn't grow up in a family maybe where mocking and that, it was just when I hung up and going, oh, kids,
Yeah.
But for you, because that shows the level of pain and trauma that Joe experienced around being mocked and criticised and sarcasm being used continuously to protect from feelings and to protect and just to avoid things. Like other people use alcohol, other people use, we use exercise, like none of us, we're all doing some kind of coping skill.
Yeah. There was another one so I never considered myself athletic or a runner, even though I did lots of team sports. And so this one year, I'm in early high school, and I decided to train for the 1,500 metre running event at the sports carnival. And Mum came along, but she didn't come into the stadium. She stood outside and watched, and I ran third. Now, the first place getter was a girl who made the next level and the state every year and was really good. So she won by a long way. Then there was another girl, and I was just a like a metre behind her. And so, because of my past, I'm already doing not good enough when I've run third. You know, I should have won. I should have beaten that girl who's been a runner since she was 4 years old. So I go over to Mum. There is no, hey, well done. Hey, how'd you think you went? No, hey, good job. There's I really thought you could have taken that second girl. What? I'm already doing not good enough to myself.
If you're out there watching this and this is triggering for you, then you can do some tapping right here, because you know, if this happened to you in childhood, and the reason Jo is telling these stories this morning, and I'm so happy that she is, it's because this was just so painful. You know, and we think these are little T things, but it really was like, I remember when we did that in a session, and going back, and you know, it's 10 out of 10 in pain and emotional hurt, and we cleared that up, which is the reason she can actually sit here and talk about it.
Yeah, and smile, and that's, it's not just that time, but so often in my life
it was representative of so many other things.
Yes, and I'm doing not good enough. So I was very academic. I did well in sports. I achieved stuff in life, but it was never enough. Never good enough. Never, what's next? I'd finish something, never acknowledge what I had done, and what's next?
Yeah, and this is Jo's perception, obviously, of childhood. And as we said, her mum and dad were doing the best they could because they'd had the programming handed down to them. And Kristen said, I struggle with silence. Part of that is me shutting down. And shutting down's a great program. I mean, the wonderful thing about Faster EFT, and when you're coming onto the calls, is the belief system is, and it's one of the main reasons I love what I do, is because we believe that you successfully produce everything in your life. Successful. So that means everything, including these things that we think are so negative, like shutting down. As a 2-year-old, good job. Like, the 2-year-old has worked out a coping strategy for herself that works really, really well, and it is making her life a hell of a lot better than it would be if she didn't learn that coping skill. So that's why I love it. I love it because I look at everything you do and go the 2-year-old, go the 3-year-old, go the 4-year-old for working that out. How smart was that child? And now, as an adult, you can just turn that into an amazing superpower. Shutting down sometimes is helpful. Yeah. It's just learning when to choose to use it, learning that you're not doing it to kind of, you know, project it onto somebody else anymore. You're just standing in your power now, I would say, is the way that you can learn how to, and I know Kristen is definitely learning that. Beautiful examples of how she's learning to stand in her power. It's beautiful to watch. So, we've gone to one of the ones I'm sure everyone out there will resonate with. What happened in childhood around clothing? For little girls, this is often a big one. There
wasn't like choice. It was so interesting. We could be, however, and I use the word like slovenly or slobby inside the home, but if we were stepping outside the door, you had to change, you had to have something on that would be decent in, you know, be seen outside. And actually, like, how you be seen, what's really bothering me now is that the sun's shining on your face. And, like, I notice things like this, which is a good thing. But it can be, I do notice still sometimes I may have judgment on others around how they dress, but then I can go,
another thing, it's hard to hang out with me when I wear my moccasins down here, wear my Ugg boots, keep wearing the same top every day.
Yeah, you've taught me lots. Thank you for helping me clear that one up. But yeah, when I see it, I go, whoa, hang on a minute, what are you doing there? That old program, let's let that one go. They can dress however they choose to dress.
Yeah. And again, guys, this comes from mums. I mean, gosh, a couple of generations back. I mean, think about 100 years ago, the women had to wear those bloody dresses, and oh my God, like the programming around clothing is just massive.
And like if you need to look a certain way to attract the opposite sex, jokes.
Oh yes. So
Yeah.
there's the memory at the races.
Oh,
Can I say that one?
yes. Yeah. I'm just thinking about this where this video's going, but I'm happy to share those stories.
Generalised, it was just more that you know, dressing up in, I don't know, well, the story when you went out with to buy clothing, even for Kate.
Oh, for one of my children who was going for a job interview. And I said, right, that section there, that's where you want to buy, that's where you want to choose something, you know, really conservative button-up, like collared shirts and black pants. That's it. And then she came back to me with something that was like see-through, and I hit the roof, and yeah.
Yeah,
no,
well, it wasn't even see-through. It would have just been a bit of a lace
a little
thing
bit
that's
like
nice.
cheery, but yeah, nice.
Yeah.
Girly even.
Yeah.
We haven't even touched on the whole feminine masculine thing, but I basically was a man inside a woman's body for many years, and working in the horse racing industry, I could tell jokes that were derogatory to women.
Yeah.
Just like the boys could.
Yeah. That keeps you in the fold.
Yeah.
So I'm sure many of you can resonate. The Aussie women. It's common. It's very common. Okay, so what about...
I'm scared of the next one.
Oh, the big one. Touch. This is huge, this one. So how was this honoured in your childhood? I keep saying that, but we're really meaning that from our perception. What programming did you receive around touch?
All right, without you giving me a story, let's jump straight to my adult years, which wasn't that long ago, 47, 48-ish, so 5-6 years ago, and I'm doing women's workshops as a participant, and I'm learning to hug, because I would walk in and all these women would be hugging one another, and I wanted to shake hands, and the hugging me. One woman in particular was a really big hugger, and I had to ask her, can you back off me a little bit? It really makes me uncomfortable. And she honoured that, which was awesome.
Yeah.
But yeah, I remember what I said earlier about having a mum. I regularly heard these words. I hate babies. So, you know, there's and I can't even go to a picture in my mind of where I was hugged by my mother in the first 15 years of my life. Perhaps they are there, but I don't recall them.
Yeah. And again, like if you're watching this and this is triggering for you, if you feel like you didn't get touch, or you develop coping skills like Joe did, that like it's kind of get your walls up, and what would you explain it like for somebody that's watching? What happened inside of you to cope with you just didn't get touched, so it's not something you would have thought you were missing out on, because it just wasn't there.
No, okay, so when I'm 14, I had this boy who liked me, right? And he sat next to me, and he reached out and he grabbed my hand, he held my hand, and I'm like, the fight, flight, freeze response. I am frozen, but frozen in that I can't move, but the blood is boiling inside of my body, and I'm sweating. I start to sweat because he's holding my hand. Like, how dare he touch me like that?
Yeah, and I presume he was doing it in a very nice way.
Yeah.
But the interesting part was too, you didn't know how to say no.
I couldn't say no, and I couldn't move away. I couldn't speak up and say I'm uncomfortable. No way. No.
Yeah.
And that happened again later in my life when with boys, when I couldn't speak up with like older men.
Yeah.
Yes, and that's all of this all gets tied in together. So, so thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing all of that. And if you put some claps in the comments for Jo, because it's really brave, and for her to share all of this. And we're doing it because we want you to really understand that Jo really thought she had a normal childhood, and she did, really. She did have shelter, she did have food, and she had parents who were just doing the best that they could with their own programming. But there was just so many areas in your life that are now changed because you did the inner work. And the relationship you have with your children now, compared to some of the things that you've been through with them, in the last probably 10 years, what would you say? What's the biggest difference now that you've done the inner work and shifted, some of these big belief systems like the I'm not good enough, and carrying around a real sense of like hatred or dislike for one of your parents? What's changed because of that?
The biggest thing is like being comfortable in myself and not placing judgment on people around me. Like, they can be whoever they are. My kids, I can now have conversations like this. This isn't that long ago. I remember one of the key conversations that I had when things weren't so great before I did the majority of this inner work. And so this is when my daughter's 14. She's now 20. And she comes to me to tell me a story, and she just goes, "Mum, I want to tell you a story. Just don't interrupt. Just wait till I get to the end. You don't have to fix anything. I just feel better when I tell you." And I'm like, whoa, light bulb. I don't even have to do anything, because in the past I'm in fix-it mode. I'm in like, who cares about the emotion? Let's just solve it. What action do we need to take to fix the problem? And in that moment, I recognized that I didn't have to do anything. Just be present, be fully present, listen, and let her go through the emotions of her own story. And in the end, it was just a hug, and everything was fine.
Yeah. And if you're resonating here, if you feel like you may have experienced things like this, where in your childhood it wasn't safe to show emotion, and you're reading all the gentle parenting books, you're reading the attachment parenting books, and look, all the parents on our calls, this is what they're doing. They're reading the books, and of course, but we all grew up with parents who did the best they could, but projected their own programming onto us. And so like the parents that show up on the calls, they're reading the gentle parenting books, but they know they are projecting some of this stuff some of the time. Not all of the time. And Jo wasn't doing it all of the time either. There was plenty of times, it feels like that in your brain, but plenty of times that she was being an amazing parent. But when you start to like really clear up some of these major things, then you will stop doing that with your kids as well. Like, stop the judgments. And like, it seems like a simple thing that Jo was able to do there, but given that that was never done for her as a child. Like, she only ever saw her mother cry once. She did not know how to be with anyone herself in her own emotions. She constantly spent her life avoiding her emotions. So how could you possibly help Jo with it? And that's no fault of hers. It's just that's how she was programmed herself. And that's, if you go back through the generations, this is just how it is.
And this is why
they didn't have any tools back then to change it.
This is why I'm having, through the years with the kids and with my parents, this is why I'm having massive breakdowns on my own in the car, or running away to the bathroom and crying, desperately crying there, because I'm so lost, so confused, so got no idea what's going on.
Yeah, that's it. When the triggers come up and the trauma actually comes up because of something that's been triggered in your actual environment, unless you have a tool like the tapping and like the defractionation process that we use, which is super, super powerful, you just think you've got to hold on to this for the rest of your life, and it's like a skipping CD, and it keeps coming back, and
This
it's
is
like
me.
Yeah.
This is my lot forever.
Yeah, this is your lot, which is not true. Not true. And I was on a call last night actually for the modality that I, used that process with the women on the calls. And I was on a training call for that. And one of the women in there, she'd 59 years of trauma. And she just, yes, it's taken her a few months, but her life is completely different. And all of us, the 3 practitioners that are on that call, we just sat there with these big smiles on our face for the whole thing, because she basically just started showing how she's gone back and changed it all, and everything's changed and everything's different, and her life is totally different. And she was saying she'd been a very, very sad woman for 59 years. So, and one of my practitioner friends who was on the call said, it seems like, she said, it's taken me 8 months. And, for Jo, it took me probably 5 years to really clean up all my anxiety, but 49 years of programming. And so, Jo, what would you say?
47 I was when I started. Like, don't wait that long.
Yes.
And also the key thing where it really showed up for me, and why we say our kids are our greatest teachers, is because that's where the pain came up. Like if I had have remained single and didn't have children, didn't get involved in relationships, and just maintained a job that I liked, like this stuff wouldn't have come up, and I could have gone on in my life like that. But I wanted more passion, more in my life. So when the kids start showing me, when I get triggered and I recognize that I could stop making it about them being the problem and look inside myself, this is where the gold really came. The golden opportunity to shift the stuff from the past so that I'm a different person in my life.
Yes, which leads us to a great announcement that we are going to make this morning. This is such a wonderful thing that Jo is setting up. I'm going to read it off here because we wrote it down. How you can empower your teenager by working on yourself. And we are opening up that as a program that you can go and have a session with Jo and talk to her about her experiences. And she went through some really big stuff with her son when he was going through the teenage years. So she really gets it. She really understands. But it's a big thing to start saying, I'm going to see how my son is my reflection. Can you speak a little bit about that?
Yeah, all 3 of the kids. But yeah, the big one was my son. So who my husband would often say, oh, he's the one who's most like you. So I'm coming from a place where in my teen years, my behaviours, like I held so much shame and guilt around my behaviours in the teen years. And then I marry a man from like a good Catholic family, a responsible man, and I'm trying to keep all this shame down inside me and not tell the truth about my past. And then we have 3 kids, and one of them who in his teen years, he wants to go out and party, and he hates school. He doesn't want to comply to our quite authoritarian rules. And, so he's showing me, he really showed me, oh my gosh. And then I've got my husband telling me he's just like you. He gave me an opportunity where at first I'm going, oh, he's such a shit of a child, and send him to a psychologist. So psychologist, can you fix him so I can feel better? Oh, wow, that was a big time. And that leads on to when I started doing the work with like alternative healers, EFT practitioners, faster EFT practitioners, and I'd go in the session and I'd start telling the story about my son, and they go, Jo, what about you? What are you feeling? And I used to get so angry. What do you mean? It's not about me. It's about my son. He just needs to change. Nah, you can't change another person. You can only go inside.
Yes. And you sent me a video the other day where someone was saying about not 99.9% of children and teenagers, for that matter, are doing well in life. You know, they're just making choices, they're trying things out. If it's bothering you, guess who? It's inside. So if you want to sign up, because we're going to be offering some special ones for the first 5 people who sign up. So if you want to sign up to that and have an hour conversation with Joe, and talk about how you can empower your teen by working on yourself.
Yes. So $60 1 hour sessions for the first 5 people. And in future as well, we're going to set up, I'm going to talk directly to the teenagers as well, and probably get that started through TikTok and Instagram, where I can reach them
they are.
and be the listening legend that my kids taught me to be, without needing to go into their story with them. Just being able to listen, not giving advice, no shoulding, no, oh yeah, you've got to listen to your parents. None of that. I can cleanly listen.
Yeah. That's the beauty of doing your inner work. You can really listen as somebody who's just there to do it. Yeah. So yay, I'm so excited about that. Yes, that's so fucking amazing. It is. Thank you, Kristen.
Awesome. And also our next course for you mamas out there starts on July the 5th. And at the moment where the intake is happening, so you can book your free 30-minute discovery call.
Send us a message.
Have a chat. Pop a comment here or send us a private message, and see how we can help you on your parenting journey, which is really your personal journey.
Definitely. Yes, awesome. Well, thank you guys. Thank you, Joe, again for sharing. And normal life is also full of stuff that you can clear up.
Who wants normal anyway?
That's it.
Yeah.
You think you've got a normal life, but you've got a normally kind of, life that hasn't had an impact on you and can be released, the parts that you don't serve you anymore.
And what about when you lose the conditioning, the programming, and you recognise who you really are?
Yeah.
That's pretty darn cool.
Yeah. Well, you get back that 2-year-old who's got no conditioning. She's free to use her emotions. She's free to have an imagination, to have creativity, to be active or quiet, to pretty well choose how she wants to hang out, to dress how she likes, to consent to how she likes to be touched, to have full ownership, full power over herself or himself, sons and daughters. This is the kind of, life that you're giving to them by cleaning up your own stuff. It's very, very, very exciting.
Yes,
good work. Yes.
Yay.
We love doing it.
Yeah, we love doing it. Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thanks, Kristen. Good to see you all on the call. And like it. So, and tell everyone that you've watched it so that they can watch it too.
And you can share from it'll be in the business page where it's shareable. It's not shareable from this private group.
Yeah. Which is the Awakened Parent with Ilka and Joe.
Yep. And YouTube, Instagram.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think it goes up on Friday, doesn't it?
Yeah.
All right.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
See you next Wednesday.
Bye. Yeah.